Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Report. Excited to have you joining us. Also excited to welcome a good friend of the podcast, Conor O'Driscoll. You know him from Stat Chasing, from his work at RotoViz over the offseason. Conor, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. Always fun to have you on. Hasan, you're still recovering, it looks like, but hanging in there.
Hasan is living as a you're living as like an ancient Roman. All the talk of like people thinking about ancient Rome every day. Hasan is taking that one step forward.
I know.
Some grapes drop in from the top.
I wish I had some grapes, man. I wish I had some grapes. No, my only dream is to be seated upright like you guys. We're getting there. Still nervous, still a little inflamed post-surgery here, but optimistic that we get it back, get going. Oh my God, you have no idea what you've got till it's gone, guys.
Speaking of having no idea what you've got, I mean, let's not bury the lead. Devon Achane. I guess this is a quote directly from NBC. I kind of want to read it. One of the most outrageous performances you'll ever see. A rookie running back who had one rush for 5 yards the previous week, shredding an opposing defense on the ground and through the air. Achane caught 2 shovel pass touchdowns and averaged nearly 12 yards per carry, including a 68-yard scamper in the fourth quarter after the souls of Denver defenders had left their bodies.
Yep, that's definitely a direct quote pulled from NBC. I think that's probably one of Rotobat's. But he had 18. You're burying the lead because he had 18 rushes for 212 yards and 2 scores, and he had 4 catches for 30 yards and 2 scores. Conor, I remember you were mentioning this in the ship chasing Discord, but why was everyone really ripping on you for
No, not me in particular. I should be clear. There was never any personal attack towards me personally, but I definitely seen a lot of commentary and analysis that Achane he's buried in the depth chart. It's going to take him too long to play, and if he's not playing, how good could he be really? And
that's true.
He slipped. He did slip quite dramatically throughout the offseason. And I forget, was he an 11th round, 12th round pick?
Yeah, you could get him depending on the platform. At some points, like closer to the start of the season, like after preseason, you could get him in the 15th, 16th round.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where when you see like analysis like that and you see the price go down so much, it starts to feel really bad. And it's like,
oh yeah,
was I an idiot for taking 30% Achane? And doesn't seem like it. Definitely a 50 burger will make you feel a lot better about taking them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously we're not thinking that the Dolphins are going to score 70 every week, but
right.
But how do you see Achane building on this performance, I guess is the best way to put it?
I mean, I think the biggest thing, and maybe this is self-evident, the biggest thing is that like he is actually a legitimately good football player. Like always the risk with rookies is that like, okay, you're buying the talent, but they've never played in the NFL before. And what if what we see in the college production and whatnot, is that not real? But definitely it feels like it's a big box to check that like, okay, this is actually a very good NFL player. I think though that he definitely was helped this week by the injuries in the backfield, and some of those guys are going to come back. I think that even it's hard to say that like just because of how well he played today when the the offense scored 70 points. And the Broncos defense must have played awful too. That he played so well that they're going to be like, okay, we just have to keep this guy in our plans forever now. So I think next week they probably do have to get on the ball to some degree, but I don't know if there's a fire lit under them to like, okay, we need to prioritize like getting him some touches every week. He probably needs to give another 2 or 3 of these to like really cement as like a 50% and above opportunity player, I think.
When you say these, do you mean like explosive sort of runs, or do you mean like 50 burgers? Because like, I think the latter.
Well, obviously not 50 burgers, but just more like you see some of the big runs he has, and he's so decisive. He's getting around defenders. Like the blocking's good and whatnot, but he's running very well. And what I mean is you probably do need him to see him rip off explosive plays where it's not just a blocking, but he's running quite well too. For a couple of weeks, and then that sort of forces their hands. Like, okay, these other running backs we have are good too, but this is our better player.
Yeah, just to back up a little bit on terms of, I know you mentioned injuries, but Waddle missed, and that was like, you could tell that was a massive miss for not necessarily for the Finns here, but like. Mostert saw what, 7 targets? I'm just pulling this up right now. Yeah, he saw 7 targets, got all 7 for 60 yards, and Achane saw 4, got 4 for 30 yards, right? So do you think with Waddle coming back, where do you think do you think that both Mostert and Achane are going to see like a pretty nice cut? Do you think a lot more is going to come from Mostert? Like, where do you think this backfield is going to head? Even once Waddle is back, I'm not even factoring in Achane or Wilson here yet.
I think the Dolphins backfield, it is a high value touch backfield. Like they do throw to the backs a decent amount. The receiving expected points it's pretty good. And then they've been getting to the green zone as well quite a bit. So there's like obviously goal line carries and like there's a good amount of expected points to go around. Clearly, like you said, Waddle being out did help that even more, and the offense having such a great day helped it even more. But that would expect it to kind of like be one of the better backfields for expected points in terms of targets and goal line touches. But yeah, obviously this is kind of an extreme outlier.
Do you agree with Cobra Kai here? He says Waddle might or should have been a 5th, 6th rounder. Do you agree with this, or like were we right to be really taking him where we were? Because this was kind of an aggressive. I mean, he was a mid-second rounder.
I mean, it's hard to. It's if you're just looking at the stats for weeks 1 and 2 and like how many points he scored, that would appear to be if you're looking at that and nothing else, then that would sort of make sense. But I when you put it in the context of like 2 games in an NFL season, it's so short. And he is, if you look at how they deployed the 2 receivers last year, he is going to be like he's going to get a heavy target share. His air yards, it's not going to just be like empty low ADOT throws. He is going to get air yards. So he's going to get like very strong fantasy opportunity over the next, 14 games of their season. And it's Waddle, who's very, very good. So this season's way too early, I think, to call that.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that last year when, the beginning of the season when Tua was healthy, fully healthy, we were talking about Hill and Waddle as both being like top 5 wide receivers in the league. So yeah, I'm not giving up on Waddle yet. Certainly.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned. It is interesting. I mean, at least to think about, but like you said, it's still such a young season. And there are we'll be talking about them later, but there are bigger busts at cost right now that didn't include an injury discount to have, or an injury to have happened for them, for us to start having these concerns. Although I will say that it was sharp to be taking Pollard in the second there 50% of the time. He's someone I'm fairly light on. I regret it.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Pollard stuff is interesting because the role has clearly been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But the points haven't followed yet. Which is, I think, is at least mildly surprising because he's been such an efficient player over his career that it's at least a little bit surprising. I don't want to like read in too much into the sort of like goal line inefficiency, but for a smaller back, well, he's not that small, but for a small-ish back, it's a little interesting that he hasn't really converted yet. It's probably coming, but
yeah, I think we're close to a pretty big game. Before we head over to Cowboys Cardinals, I did want to close out on the Denver side of the ball. I don't know if you guys saw this, but like Sean Payton looks like somehow it looks like he's aged 30 years after that game. And somehow Courtland Sutton caught 8 of his 11 targets for 95 yards and a score. He also had 2 drive-killing fumbles while carrying the football like a loaf of bread, which is something that the Denver Dolphins' defenders really were targeting there. I wanted to get your thoughts here, Conor. Like, do you think Sutton really is this like number one receiver here over Jerry Jeudy, who put up all this garbage time production against the Broncos? And where does this leave Marvin Mims?
And I mean, Sutton hasn't played overall. He hasn't played awful. Like it's hard for me, at least anyway, to like put too much weight on fumble stuff. Like, so for him to be getting targeted quite a bit, like he must be playing decently well. I think in terms of like versus Jeudy, Jeudy is coming off the hamstring injury. I think next week and going forward, it'll be a bit harder to blame the hamstring injury. But that's at least an excuse for Jeudy to have not quite been producing so far. Because I really was expecting him to be like sort of dominate targets a little bit, where his ability to get open would have been so good that he would be a magnet for targets. But that doesn't seem to have happened yet. And then Mims clearly, does seem pretty clearly the best player on their offense so far, but they only play him like last 10 snaps a game. So, if they found a way to, if they found a way to play him, I should say, like you said, I should say that somebody who's performing that outrageously well on 10 snaps as a rookie, like it seems like a very clear cut, like end of the year, like no Mims, no money, like situation. Yeah. Whereas if he does play himself into bigger opportunity and he keeps performing like that, it's very easy to see him putting up like outrageous scores.
Yeah. I mean, when you figure he, even on 10 snaps or whatever, he had 15 maybe today. Still to get 5 targets is pretty impressive. It shows that when he's on the field, they're trying to get him the ball, and he's open a lot. So you expect those kind of, you expect his targets per route probably to come down, but that happens when you start running more routes. Yeah, it's interesting. Jeudy didn't play really a full-time role today either, so I don't know that I would be too concerned about his targets compared to Sutton's at this point. I think it seems like they were probably not ready to. He's maybe not at quite 100% yet, and they didn't want to rush him back. So next week, I'd expect those target numbers to be closer between Judy and Sutton. Yeah, I do want to get thoughts on my guy Jaleel McLaughlin, who outcarried Samaje Perine today. Is Perine out as the backup running back? Is there a new RB2?
It does feel like he's about to get flipped. Like that it's that close in by game 3. It does feel like that and McLaughlin is probably a better contrast to Javonte as well. Whereas Perine was always this sort of like competent at everything, but never really like a true like game changer at anything. Whereas McLaughlin, like the fact that he's speedy, that could be something where like they were like, okay, we have this kind of like more powerful tackle breaking back in Javonte, whereas McLaughlin is a better change of pace. That is something though that it's hard to say. Like just looking at he did only play 13 snaps versus Perine's 19. So I do wonder if like there's any chance that the coaching staff would trust Perine with stuff like pass blocking more. That would mean he's kind of like a stubborn he's able to stubbornly hold on to something there. But it's definitely really interesting that they're close.
Yeah, I mean, but like the Broncos are sitting at 0-3. Like Sean Payton clearly, I mean, Sean Payton definitely has lost a step or two, right? Like there's just no way. I don't know if it's like Russ or if it's him or if it's a combo of the two, but like this is like a very ugly one-note Broncos offense, right? Like why not? Why not try something? Also stop trying this Brandon Johnson nonsense.
Yeah.
Right? Like what? Like I think Brandon Johnson actually had like a couple of pretty costly plays against the team itself. I don't know. I mean, I really want to get your thoughts here, Drake, on a macro level. Like for all the hype that we had about the Broncos and Sean Payton and this entire revival going into the season, we've really seen an absolute bottoming out. Like, do you expect any forms of life here at all from this offense, like down the stretch, to where you can comfortably say, yeah, this is not like, yeah, I can see another year for Russ. Yeah, I can see more time being added on the clock for some of these guys. Or is it just going to be like an all-out cleansing end of season where they just hand the team over to Sean Payton and let him build it in his vision?
I mean, the offense was like at least partially functional in weeks 1 and 2.
Yeah.
This week it was obviously just awful. But I think that there's definitely enough. I think there is enough talent here, and maybe as Judy and Javonte kind of like come back into closer to 100%, and they involve Mims more. That does feel like something where like this offense should still be quite functional. Like where it's I don't think it's an offense where like you just can't get any production from it just because like it doesn't work on multiple levels. Like I think there is something here. It's definitely a disappointment where Peyton his revival as he hasn't really revived it too much. He's probably been slightly better than Hackett, but not really an offensive mastermind by any stretch.
Dude, he looks so old in that one press clip that I saw of him. Like he looks genuinely like whoa, this guy should not be on the like he looked every bit of his age. Whereas you know how like Pete Carroll doesn't look like that? Like he looked every bit of his age.
Yeah, Pete Carroll's like a cool uncle.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Pete Carroll, we can actually jump ahead to that game. I know this is a guy who you were pretty bullish on. Kenneth Walker rushed 18 times for 97 yards and 2 scores in the Seahawks' Week 3 win over the Panthers. He also added 59 yards on 3 receptions. You know, Walker was a centerpiece in the offense against a solid Panthers secondary. But both of his scores came in the second half. Is this kind of what you were expecting here, Drico? I know you mentioned that you were very bullish on Kenneth Walker during draft season. And are you excited with the return so far? And do you think he can keep up Zach Charbonnet for the entire entire year?
Yeah, I think so. The knock coming into Kenneth Walker was that obviously very explosive runner, but not the best at converting goal line touches into touchdowns, and sort of a zero as a receiver. And the fact that he's converting green zone touches into touchdowns, he had 4 targets today. He only had 10 routes versus 16 for Charbonnet. But I think that's a pretty good return versus like what people were sort of expecting. Like where I definitely think at this point it's fair to say that the fear of him getting phased out of the fantasy rich touches is overblown, and his role is fairly, it's not the best role, but it's pretty good, and the talent there is obviously phenomenal. So definitely excited after the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think everybody else over here has a good point about like Kenneth Walker holding off Charbonnet. Charbonnet had one pretty impressive truck stick highlight. I don't know if you guys saw it. But he was
out of bounds when he did it.
Yeah, he's out of bounds. Right?
I like guys who make plays when they're inbounds.
Yeah, exactly. But the bigger question here, Blair, if you want to blow this one up, is how long before JSN hits, you think? Oh my God, what is going on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did want to kind of pick your guys' brains about JSN, and I guess kind of how long before you start to get worried, or if you're not already.
He needs to start making plays, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was a pretty fair expectation that he was going to be behind the top 2 in routes going into the year. But he hasn't really. I was hoping anyway that similar to sort of like your Justin Jeffersons and so on and so forth, where and Garrett Wilson, where they make enough like amazing plays early in the year, the team just has to go, okay, we just got to play that guy.
Yeah.
It's concerning that we haven't seen that. I'm not panicking yet. But that's what sort of, I think that's what we need to see, that like, okay, he's made this highlight reel play, and they have to say, okay, I know Metcalf and Lockett are amazing, but we really have to find a way to play this guy more, even if he is a rookie.
Yeah, right. You can kind of explain away the lack of production because he's still only playing like half the snaps or something. But at some point, you would hope that if he's really as good as we think he is, that they'll force the coaching staff's hand.
Yeah, that's the question, right, Blair? Like, you're looking at someone who's losing out on targets to Noah Fant, who everyone had left for dead, Colby Parkinson, who people had left for dead, right? And like he and Zach and Jake Bobo, right? Like he should not be losing out on this type of production. I don't know. I mean, Fant is just like, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but like my instinct at the time was that they weren't particularly happy with Fant as an offensive weapon. Hence, they took JSN, especially where they took him, because they wanted more firepower in the aerial game. And that's, I don't know. It's not, that thesis is still yet to be borne out here. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And if I die, I die. But like, that's, that was my thought at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, it's, hard to explain everything this way, but Pete Carroll does some weird stuff with rookies every year, it seems like.
And we are still early.
Yeah.
I know.
Like, we're still at the point of the season where if JSN did something like in week 7, week 8, and then became a very strong starter the rest of the way, that you'd be very happy with that pick.
Yeah. But it is tough because like I do think that like one of the things was that like the rookie wide receiver ADPs were pushed up so high that you were expecting them to be like at least participating a little bit more in the offense than they currently are, if only because wide receiver itself was a little shallow of a position early, and then you're also drafting these guys where you were. I don't know if that was your thought, Drico, or if I'm just panicking and you're here talking me off a ledge.
You're saying you are starting to panic on.
No. I can't tell if I am panicking and you're here to talk me off a ledge, or if I'm expecting this, because we were taking them so early where we were taking them, right? Like, am I justified in feeling like, oh, we should be expecting a little bit more, or should I just be a little bit more patient?
I mean, it depends on how early you took them. I know, like, definitely after the injury, he started going a lot later. I think if you're talking about like a 5th or 6th round pick, like the 5th or 6th round pick, like if like the starting scenario for JSN is good enough, like you can be a little patient there. But I mean, obviously it, like we haven't hit the best outcome. Like the best outcome would have been that he makes plays straight away, and that it's a Garrett Wilson thing. That hasn't happened. And like the longer we go, the worse things look. But I'm thinking that, like, if we're still having the same conversation in, let's say, 2 weeks, then it's definitely not. It's maybe not panic time, but much more concerning.
I mean, it is. You kind of you expect it because you do see these other rookies kind of making, leading their team in snaps and routes and targets right away. Zay Flowers today led the Ravens. You see, Jordan Addison had 7 targets. Sam LaPorta, 8 targets and a touchdown today. It's, and that's not even to mention guys we didn't even expect, like Puka. So, I mean, at a certain point, you do kind of say, okay, JSN, you got to actually show me something. We can't blame this all on the coaching staff.
Right. And maybe, I know those rookies are other rookies are dealing with much less competition, but maybe in this instance where coaches already want to slowly bring on rookies, that the fact that Lockett and Metcalf have played so well is just even more excuse for them to not play him as much as we'd like.
Right.
Yeah. Historical anomalies mentioned this in the chat, but we'll just get to it. So Quentin Johnson, he caught only 2 of his 3 targets for 10 yards today in the Chargers' win over the Vikings. He's still a box score non-entity and was outsnapped by Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer had some embarrassingly bad drops, by the way, that one of them almost cost him the game. The big development here, though, is Mike Williams' knee injury. It sounds like he's going to be looking at a multi-week absence, if not longer. Drico, what are your thoughts here? And Blair, like, what are your thoughts here on QJ? Do you really think this team can continue to roll out Josh Palmer at all? Like, I mean, like, he had a couple of really bad blunders earlier today to where it was just, it questions his role in the team entirely. So I was curious what your guys' thoughts were here. Is it like QJ season now?
I'm gonna pass on being the first person to. Blair, do you want to be the first person to answer this something?
I mean, is it QJ season now? He played 16 snaps today? I wish it were QJ season soon.
Yeah.
I wish it were starting. He's another guy where, you kind of hope that he would force the coaching staff's hand to put him in ahead of Josh Palmer. I mean, hopefully, hopefully with Williams out, he gets more of an opportunity. But you would expect him to have already been playing ahead of Palmer and even, maybe ahead of Williams. So, so I think you have to have kind of at least start to have the same kind of concerns with Quentin Johnson as you do with JSN. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not panicking yet, but
and price was much cheaper on QJ
sure.
than JSN, so that is something as well where you get a couple of weeks at the back end of the season like that are very good.
Yeah,
you're happy. But I think too, like some of the mistakes that if you're seeing guys make mistakes, and I didn't get a chance to watch much of the Chargers game today, but I know he did have quite a few drops, in the preseason. It did seem like he was like a raw in the preseason itself. It seemed like it was a raw rookie, who they're trying to like acclimatize the NFL, not like hey, this guy is a star, and like we're very excited about him.
Yeah. The other thing is that for as long as Eckler's out, man, like the target should go around. The second Eckler comes back, like he just is such a target vacuum. You know what I mean? Do you guys have concerns about him?
Who?
Eckler and his return and what it does to his passing game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to see like Keenan Allen's targets come down, at least from what he had today, which was 20, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, 20. I mean, obviously that's not sustainable. Herbert did throw 47 passes, so these are kind of inflated anyway. But I think, once Eckler's back, you'd see fewer targets for Keenan for sure, but also probably for guys like Gerald Everett, who are getting those targets closer to the line of scrimmage anyway.
Yeah, and the other thing that I wonder about this Mike Williams injury is how many more we're actually. It seems like we're already getting quite a few 2 tight end sets for the Chargers. But they that may push them to use even more. That's not quite related. It's just a thought on the Chargers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think with Eckler, he definitely reduces the available volume down a little bit for everybody. But also the fact he's quite good. Hopefully that is also like over it wasn't a concern today, but over a longer term that him being good with his touches also keeps the offense on the field and like is overall like hopefully either like only a small negative to neutral.
Yeah.
Like rather than touches for Josh Kelly and whatnot.
Yeah. Definitely you would see Kelly take a step back. He only had 1 target today, I think. So not much in the passing game to take from him, but yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm not seeing him on this list, but I did want to talk about a guy I mentioned before, another rookie, Sam LaPorta, who kind of had a breakout day. Seeing a rookie tight end come on and put up these kind of numbers this early is fairly unusual. Where are you thinking about? Well, LaPorta,
he had 11 targets, 8 catches for 84 yards and a score.
Right. Where do you have LaPorta ranked, say, in Dynasty or maybe going into next year? Best ball.
He's in the he has to be in like the middle of the where we had the elite range this year, I think. Like I think he has to go ahead of who's the Steelers tight end again?
Freiermuth.
Freiermuth. Yeah, he has to be going ahead of where Freiermuth and Njoku were, because he does have this role where he's running a lot of routes. He's high up in their plans. Like he's like a priority target for them to get the ball to. He's clearly playing well. Like his role up to now had been quite good, even if the production wasn't as good as today. And if we're seeing him come out of the gate, like really high snap share, really high route share, heavily targeted, like that's just sort of elite tight end.
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, I'm thinking underdog, I'm thinking maybe like cautiously the 4th round.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Cobra Kai brings up the comp I was not necessarily thinking of, but, you know, do you have LaPorta maybe already in that kind of second elite tier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Pitts saw 9 targets today. He had 4 catches for 41 yards. But like at some point, right? Like Kyle Pitts' like rookie season doesn't indicate his situation today, right? His rookie season, we've talked about this before, was bereft of Drake London. The fact that he's putting up similar numbers to Jonnu Smith is just, I don't know, man. Like it's kind of abysmal. Like on the other hand, you've got LaPorta, who's actually dominating targets alongside Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like this was a condensed target tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
It got through the ball 33 times, but it went to Amon-Ra St. Brown 12 times, went to LaPorta 11 times, and it went to Khalif Raymond 6 times, and Gibbs only twice, right? Like, I mean, well, the Lions kind of toyed around a little bit with the Falcons, right? Like the Falcons kind of saw that they couldn't just play their typical bullshit football and continue to win. It gets fairly one note when you're playing against slightly better teams, but that is an interestingly aggressive rank from you there, Rico, on LaPorta. I like it. Where would you consider him on FFPC next year? Like, is it like a late second, early third? Like, what would you be doing there?
On FFPC, I think.
Remember, it's tight end premium,
like 2-3 turn. Yeah, with tight end premium, I think you are talking 2-3 turn.
2-3 turn, right? Yeah,
because he's got it. He's basically got the Hawkinson role, and he's got the Hawkinson role immediately,
Right.
and so
and way more consistently than Hawkinson ever had it.
Yeah, and if you're talking about like second year player jumps, like I just think like he's one of those players where the following season, or even by the end of this season, or by the end of next season, he could just be like a standard, like one of the top tight ends, like one of the household elite tight end names. And obviously I'm like projecting a trajectory forward, but I think that's sort of what you have to do with the young players.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but that's kind of what we're like. That's kind of, I mean, that gives you an idea of what his ceiling range of outcomes looks like, right? Is trading Puka for AJ Brown and Saquon a good move? I have Puka. Yes, I would absolutely trade Puka Nacua for AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley.
Sometimes questions are easier than others.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a guy who we teased a little bit earlier, but one of the bigger disappointing non-injury busts of the early season so far, in my opinion, has been Jahan Dotson, who only got 2 of his 4 targets for 21 yards today. I mean, most of the Commanders receivers, they weren't able to get much going against the Bills, especially with the O-line being beat up. But Dotson hasn't been able to get much going, period. right? Like this
Yeah.
isn't. I mean, like were people drawing far too big of a conclusion from preseason, or is there almost like triple counting going on with McLaurin's injury? I apologize about that. And like I was just curious, like where your rest of the season expectations are on Dotson. I mean, I'm kind of getting a little bit bearish here on Howell myself.
Well, there's the Commanders. We had actually talked about this a little bit on Stat Chasing last week. That one of the big problems for Dotson is that he's not consolidating targets at all. The targets on the offense are really spread out. Just going down the list today. So Dotson, he had 4. Terry had 6. Curtis Samuels had 4. Colt Turner had 6. Antonio Gibson had 4. John Bates had 2. Like Diami Brown had 1. Like you're just talking about a really spread out target set here. And
that's gross. That's gross. Hearing Diami Brown was even in the list. You know what I mean?
Oh, come on.
Grosser than John Bates? You expect someone like that to get like a shot play or something like that.
Yeah.
Not sure if that's what happened, but it's one of those things where you I think you are marking Dotson down a decent amount as a disappointment so far. Where the evidence is sort of suggesting that he's not among the NFL's like top wide receivers. And he's more of a good wide receiver who can perform, but maybe not a priority, like sort of like 5-6 round target in fantasy football.
Yeah. Yeah. Cole Turner led the team in targets, 7 targets. I mean, if you're really desperate at tight end, is that somewhere you might look?
Don't they have Logan Thomas is coming back from concussion? Well, who knows when Logan Thomas does come back?
Right.
But assuming Logan Thomas is out, and you get sort of desperate for a tight end start, Cole Turner sounds like a fine spot start with the contingency that Logan Thomas is out, I think.
The other thing that's interesting about this game, I think Gibson played more than Brian Robinson for the first time this season. It looked for a while like Robinson was going to kind of be the guy.
Yeah. He was listed really high up our snap share chart.
Yeah.
He was like in the starter portion, and that's Brian Robinson. So definitely big surprise that Antonio Gibson is playing more.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it was related to just the game kind of. Well, I mean, I guess it got really out of hand in the fourth quarter, but still, how much of the game script changed that? How much?
That is interesting.
I don't really know.
Well, even if it is because of that, even if it is because of the game script, I think it's really interesting that in trailing game scripts that Antonio Gibson is a much more trusted player. Because I know that there was it did start to feel though like, oh, maybe they have Brian Robinson clearly ahead of Gibson.
Yeah.
But we don't know exactly the exact contours, but we know that each of these guys are we don't know. It does feel like each of these guys is going to have a role different weeks, and maybe frustrating start sit decisions in managed, but what the information we have is that they probably each have a weekly ceiling.
Yeah. It's interesting. Earlier, it looked like Robinson would even take the receiving work, and there was a pretty clear split in this game. So that's definitely something that was That was kind of a surprise from this one. Something to watch for sure.
Yeah. And do you know if there was an injury or anything like that?
That's what I was trying to find out. It doesn't look like it. I mean, Gibson fumbled in this game, so you would almost expect for him to get the
doghouse again, right? Because he's already spent so much
right.
time in.
They love putting him in the doghouse, but that doesn't seem to have happened. So that's why I was thinking maybe Robinson got hurt for a while, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah, there's no news report or anything like that
Right.
on it. It's just like game script or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's interesting though, because like they do, then it does show that they still do, like you were saying, they do have trust Gibson. There's a lot of chatter right now in our chat about CJ Stroud. Is he the best QB in the AFC South, Connor? He's not even on our show sheet, but we're just going to talk about him now. Or
are you asking me if he's better than Trevor Lawrence?
No,
that's a tough question.
Gardner Minshew.
What's that?
That's a tough question. Is it better than Gardner Minshew?
Is CJ Stroud better than Minshew? Or is Trevor Lawrence better than...
No. It's like CJ Stroud. Is he the best rookie quarterback right now?
Yeah.
Or do you think he's going to wind up as a rookie QB1 ahead of Richardson and also Bryce Young?
I think he's definitely when you say as a rookie QB, do I think he's going to be the top scorer among all rookie QBs this year? I think it's probably like it's hard to say. Like if what's his name? Who's the guy for the Colts? I know.
Richardson.
You just said his name. Yeah. If Richardson is healthy and gets the concussion stuff sorted out, the rushing production there it's just so hard to match for a pocket passer. But you were also you were getting much cheaper prices on Stroud than Richardson. So yeah. I think they're both actually pretty good hits for the price that you got. Especially for Stroud, especially in Superflex, like that's a big win there, I think.
Yeah.
For Bryce Young, I'm 90% of the way there to like thinking that he's maybe a bust. That
it's a bit early though, but yeah, I mean, we're not seeing much of the rushing production though, right? That's his biggest calling card.
I mean. You've seen decent rushing production, like he's getting 40, 50 yards in games, but the passing has been so anemic that you're still getting crappy fantasy performances. And it's maybe it is too small of a sample size to sort of like declare this, but that the offense has been bad with Bryce Young as a quarterback, and then at least functional, seemed to play actually decently with Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
It's not like this is such a terrible, terrible, awful offensive environment that nobody could make it work, because Andy Dalton can make it work for a game at least. And so I think it's extremely concerning for Bryce that he's looked this poor so far.
And Andy Dalton looked pretty poor last year against the Saints.
Yeah,
so
he's like a backup quality quarterback, and it's concerning that he's outplayed Bryce Young.
Yeah. Sticking in Houston, I'm interested in your thoughts on Tank Dell, who's kind of emerged as the top guy there. He had 145 yards today and 1 touchdown on 7 targets. If Stroud is the real deal, is Tank Dell kind of his number one guy? We buying this?
I thought Nico seems to be their main receiver.
Yeah, did Nico get hurt today? He had only 3 targets. Look at his
Tank Dell. He clearly looks very, very good, and all the most of the concerns about him coming into this year as a rookie, particularly the size thing, clearly not an issue, because he's been performing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Tank Dell is definitely starting to be like a data point where when guys come out into the draft as 160, 170 pounds, like, well, we've now got evidence that that's not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting as well that his 40 time wasn't like phenomenal. I think it was like a 4.49 or something like that. So it's like honestly pretty weak for his size. But then when you watch him play, he's clearly playing much faster than that. So I'm thinking that Tank Dell, in terms of like the size, speed, production, the college production, clearly, and it does seem pretty clear like an outlier hit. Because normally players who he's 23, right? 23-year-old rookies, not normally strong bets, normally RotoViz. And Blair, you would be leading the charge away from somebody like Tank Dell. But does seem like, okay, well, we've seen the NFL evidence here. He can clearly play.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like T.Y. Hilton, right? A little bit like T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of guys who have kind of come out at that size and been successful. It's definitely more rare. But yeah, and with the age thing as well, there are concerns. But I mean, when a guy's producing at the NFL level, you can't really question that too much. All right. Anyone else we want to cover before we get out of here?
Nah, none I can think about. It's just been a really weirdo-ish week.
Tyjae Spears outsnapping Derrick Henry. What do we think of this? I mean, we're all for it, but do we think it?
Neither were like fantasy relevant, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think they still clearly see, even though Spears is getting more snaps, Derrick Henry is still like, he's still Derrick Henry to them.
Right.
Like they still want to use him quite a bit, and his touch count and expected points is still like solid. I think the big thing though is that it used to be that you could get there on volume, on rushing volume with Derrick Henry, whereas that out is just no longer available.
Yeah,
you need Derrick Henry to play at the top of his game to be, like you said, fantasy relevant, or he's not. And then for Spears, to be playing this much in a team that's historically been very close to 100% Henry is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
I guess thinking through it, my big concern with Spears is that the team has been pretty bad. Like the offense hasn't been very strong. Like, does that do you guys think that like even with an offense like this that somebody who I know was excited about the talent profile, is there still like outs to emerge where he's playing enough and he can produce enough to be like a really strong 0 RB hit?
I think that if there is a profile that can hit on an offense that's bad, it's the pass catching running back. So Spears kind of has that going for him. 4 targets today, only 3 yards. So it wasn't like he's making a case for them to throw to him more. But, if they're, it's hard to hit on a bad offense unless you're a guy who's like an outlet for a quarterback who's under pressure a lot. So I think that does help, but yeah, it definitely doesn't make things easy.
We just haven't seen any of that home run speed either from Spears, but doesn't mean he doesn't have it.
Yeah, he'll be interesting to watch, and hopefully he'll keep getting these targets because I have him on a lot of teams.
Yeah, and it does sound like you're sort of hoping for some games where he's getting 6 targets, 5 catches, and even if it's only like 30 yards or something like that, if he can add a touchdown,
yeah,
like you're getting usable weeks there
for sure. Yeah,
I feel a little bit spoiled right now because I'm like, oh, that's only 12 points, and just because
you must have
we've had
Achane and Mostert on a lot of teams.
Yeah, and because we honestly, it does seem like we've had phenomenal 0 RB weeks so far.
Mm-hmm.
That like it feels very spoiled rotten to be saying like that's only 12 points.
Can't use 12 points. I mean, you're hoping for 8 targets and 7 catches and 60 yards and 2 touchdowns, but
Right.
in between those games, you got to live with 12 points.
Yeah.
All right. I think that'll do it for us. Conor, what do you got going on this year that people should be checking out?
I've been doing stat chasing on we do it on Tuesday evening. The live broadcast is for ship chasing subs, but it goes out immediately the next morning. And what we do is we break down all the sort of like advanced data for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends, and we'll go not every player, but sometimes it feels like pretty close to every player. And what we'll try to do is we'll try to analyze that data as it comes out, and turn our analysis into something that's really actionable. And so like we'll talk about if guys are cut candidates and because of the data, we try to incorporate waivers. We try to look through the lens of like best ball redraft. So like how would we re-rank these players now? We look at DFS and I don't think we've mentioned Dynasty yet, but our heavy focus is on turning this kind of advanced data and analysis into something as actionable as possible. As like something, how would we use it to make decisions?
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. It's easy to get overwhelmed with all the advanced metrics, so helpful to be able to put it in kind of practical terms. Definitely check
That's
that
our
out.
goal.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, definitely check out Conor's work, and if you're not already subscribed to our channel, then rectify that immediately. And yeah, thanks for hanging out.